I never imagined I would be a hero, but saving strangers led me to love a billionaire. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air felt thick, pulsing with something terrible. My heart raced as I stumbled upon a car wreck. Metal twisted, glass shattered, smoke rising like a ghost. I could barely breathe. Panic clawed at my throat. A woman cried out, her voice a tortured wail beneath the mess. I felt my hands tremble as I moved closer, my feet unwilling. Around me, the world faded. I had to act. I reached for the door, the cold, crumpled metal biting into my palms. All I could think was, save her, get her out. My body moved without thinking. I pushed and pulled, ignoring the screams of my own heartbeat. With a final heave, I pulled the woman free. She gasped for air, eyes wide with fear. I hugged her tight, feeling her trembling, her tears hot against my skin. In that moment, I was a hero. But little did I know that this small act of bravery would lead me down a path I couldn't fathom. The mysterious man who stepped out of the shadows sent shivers down my spine. He wore a tailored suit, all crisp lines and confidence. His eyes, dark and piercing, locked onto mine. I felt the weight of his gaze like an anchor. He was unlike anyone I had ever met. "You saved her," he said, almost reverently. There was a magnetism there, something that drew me in. I felt my heart flutter. I was just a scared girl, and he was something else. But who was he? Why was he watching? Questions whirled in my head. Suddenly, sirens pierced the air, jarring me back to reality. I glanced around, the crowd forming like a wave. Faces blurred, some covered mouths in shock, others whispered in disbelief. I saw the admiration in their eyes, mixed with awe. They were witnesses to my small act of courage, but I felt more lost than ever. I turned back to the man. But he was gone, vanished like smoke in the wind. My breath quickened. Where had he gone? What did he want? The world around me spun, and I felt dizzy with the thoughts racing through my mind. I thought I'd changed someone's life that day, but in reality, mine had been turned upside down. What would come next? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Days passed since the accident, yet the images haunted me. I woke at night, drenched in sweat, the woman's desperate cries ricocheting in my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that my life had irrevocably changed. It wasn't just about being a hero. It felt like I had been thrust into a narrative that was far bigger than I could handle. That I wandered through my days, clouds of sleep swirling in my head. Work at the cafe a mere shadow of what it used to be. Customers came and went, their voices blending into a soundtrack of normalcy that I couldn't grasp. For them, everything had returned to routine, but for me, the weight of curiosity and fear pressed down harder each hour. I frequently glanced at the door, half expecting to see the enigmatic figure from the accident walk through it. It was in one of those disintegrating moments, while my fingers mechanically prepared a cappuccino, that an unexpected kindness unfolded. An elderly man, stooped and graying, approached the counter. He placed a wrinkled bill on the surface and smiled warmly. "You've got a light in you, dear," he said with a sweetness that crinkled his eyes. "I saw what you did. Not everyone would act in the face of fear." His words wrapped around me, a fragile warmth in the chilling reality of my feelings. I managed a shy smile, feeling the edges of my heart soften. "Thank you," I replied, surprise coating my voice. "You remember that. Some days, just a little kindness can change everything. Don't lose that spark." With a nod, he turned and shuffled away, leaving me with a sense of purpose I desperately needed. But as days melded into weeks, the heaviness returned. The woman I saved, Lily, was recovering well physically, I had heard through the grapevine. But within me, a gnawing worry festered. What if I had been too late? Would she ever know the full depth of the darkness that had nearly taken her life? And then the memory of that man, the one in the suit, slipped back into focus, his intent eyes seeming to watch me from the edges of my thoughts. Who was he? Why had he disappeared? I felt pulled toward his mystery like iron to a magnet, a mix of fear and fierce curiosity fluttering inside me. On an impulse, I grabbed my coat and left the cafe, my mind set on finding answers. I needed to confront whatever I was feeling, or it would drown me. With each purposeful step, determination mingled with dread, propelling me into the heart of the city, where the accident had occurred. I reached the chaos of the site. Now just a memory, the hopelessness throbbed in my chest. The barricades were gone, but the air still felt charged with something unresolved. I found a bench nearby, sitting under the eerie hush that enveloped the spot. My mind raced, retracing the events of that day, but around me, life thrummed with people buzzing, oblivious to my turmoil. Then the unexpected happened. A shadow fell across my view, and beneath a worn baseball cap emerged a familiar face. I thought I'd find you here. It was him, the man from that terrifying day. He looked different, more human, less intimidating out of his tailored suit. My heart raced, caught between apprehension and exhilaration. "What do you want from me?" I blurted, urgency coating my words. His gaze softened, confusion and understanding tangled in his expression. "To understand, I am not as distant as you might think." The vulnerability mirrored in his eyes stoked both intrigue and fear within me, and I felt the air thicken with unspoken truths between us. There was something else there, a gravity that pulled, and as we exchanged glances, time seemed to unravel. "We can't ignore what happened, nor what you did," he continued, stepping closer, the world fading around us. I took a shaky breath, caught in the ferocity of possibility. "But it's not about that. I'm just a girl who acted when it mattered most," he interrupted, his words slipping into my thoughts like a balm on a wound. Before I could answer, the sound of sirens that had once terrified me echoed in the distance, bringing a rush of urgency. My heart thrummed, pounding against the rhythm of the world closing in. "I need to go," I stuttered, instinctively backing away. But as I turned, he grasped my arm gently, a connection that both calmed and burned. "You aren't just a girl. You are a hero, and I want to show you what that truly means." The weight of his words struck me, causing my breath to hitch. What was he really saying? Could I step into this new reality he hinted at, or would it break me further? I didn't know, and as I pulled away, I felt the foundation of my world trembling beneath me. The echo of his voice trailed behind as uncertainty swallowed me whole. In that moment, a new chapter opened, and I stood precariously at its precipice. As I turned to leave, another siren blared, but this time it was different, closer. Worry surged within me. "Wait." I heard him call after me, then, abruptly, another crash rang out, sending shockwaves through the air, and everything I thought I knew began to unravel once more. I stumbled back, the raw chaos of the moment colliding with my reality. Another crash? My mind raced as I scanned the area, dread unfurling in the pit of my stomach. The sirens grew louder, the chaotic pulse of the city filling my ears. Just when I thought the horror was behind me, it felt as if fate had other plans in store. The man's grip on my arm tightened, fear stark in his eyes. "No, stay here. It's not safe." His voice, usually commanding, cracked slightly, revealing a vulnerability I hadn't sensed before. I turned to face him, my heart hammering in my chest. What just happened? I couldn't shake the question from my mind. A part of me wanted to bury myself under a mountain of blankets and pull away from the world entirely. But there was another part, ignited by his unexpected warmth, that wanted to confront whatever darkness hovered over us. Before he could respond, a woman's frightened scream cut through the air, sharp and piercing. Instinctively, I moved toward the sound, propelled by memories of despair and the desperate need to help those in crisis. "We have to check it out," I urged him, adrenaline coursing through my veins like fire. He hesitated, eyes clouded with doubt, but finally nodded. "Okay, but be careful." And we pushed through the scattering crowd of bystanders, all eyes riveted on the chaos unfolding just a block away. As we reached the corner, the scene came alive in front of me. A small blue car lay crumpled against a lamppost, smoke swirling grotesquely into the sky. A crowd gathered, murmurs of panic rippling through the onlookers. The weight of anxious anticipation crawled over my skin, pulling me back to that day when I had felt so brave, so strong. "Stay close," the man urged, his breath mingling with mine, quick and uneven. The driver, a middle-aged man, stumbled from the wreckage, clutching his side. His eyes were wide with horror, his distress evident. My son is trapped," he cried, panic clinging to every syllable. Something primal surged inside me, igniting the bravery I hadn't believed I possessed. "We have to help him," I shouted before barreling into the scene, ignoring the nagging fear gnawing at my insides. The man, despite his suit, fell in step behind me, his determined presence bolstering my fragile resolve. Together, we approached the car, the crying child barely visible through the shattered window, terror etching deep lines into his small face. "It's going to be okay," I reassured him, kneeling to meet his gaze. "We're here to help. What's your name?" "Ben," he whimpered, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Ben, I need you to take a deep breath and listen to me. We're going to get you out." My voice trembled, but I forced myself to maintain eye contact with the boy. The chaos around us blurred, the world falling away until it was just the three of us. "Your dad is right here, okay?" I waved to the father, whose desperation was palpable, yet I could see a flicker of relief shoot through him at my words. But I could feel the massive weight of the crumpled vehicle pressing against my resolve, the time ticking away as I realized we couldn't wait for the fire department. Something had to be done. I turned to the man beside me, desperately looking for guidance. "What do we do?" He stepped forward, scanning the situation. "We need to shift the car. If we can just tilt it slightly." His voice trailed off, weighing the risks. "No time to think, we've got to act." I was surprised at my own boldness, bolstered by that flicker of hope growing within me. Together, how much could we really achieve? With shaky hands and a surge of adrenaline, we joined forces, grabbing a hold of the rear of the car. As we began to push, the metal groaned loudly, protesting our efforts. The crowd parted like a sea of frightened bystanders, their voices melding into an incoherent murmur, lost within my desperate focus. "Keep pushing," the man shouted, urgency pouring from him. I gritted my teeth, feeling the strain in my muscles as I surged forward again. "Come on, one more time." Finally, the car shifted just enough for the opening to widen, allowing Ben to wriggle out. In that instant, an overwhelmingly fierce sense of accomplishment swelled inside me. Relief sprawled across Ben's tear-streaked face, and moments later, he was out in the open air, stumbling into his father's waiting arms. But the moment of triumph was fleeting, overtaken by another deafening crash, this one even closer. I looked past the father and son to see a truck careening out of control down the road. My heart plummeted. "Get back!" the man shouted, grabbing me forcefully. In instinctual obedience, I turned. But as I did, the world seemed to slow. I saw broken glass, twisting metal, and Ben's tiny body still too close to the chaos that I in that breathless instant. The fear of losing everything washed over me once more. Without thinking, I lunged toward Ben, but a blinding light enveloped everything in a veil of fear, the world spiraling into chaos as I tried to shield him. And then darkness crashed down around me, thick and suffocating. The darkness held me for what felt like an eternity, pressing in like a heavy blanket. When I finally tore my eyes open, the blinding light gave way to soft, yellowish overhead bulbs that felt both comforting and alien. Staring up at the ceiling, my heart raced, a tumultuous mix of fear and confusion. "Ben," I gasped, forcing myself to sit up, but a searing pain shot through my shoulder, knocking me back into the bed. Panic surged, slicing through the haze of unconsciousness. I felt a warm hand clutching mine gently but firmly. "Hey, you're okay." The familiar voice broke through my frantic thoughts. I turned my head and saw the man, the one who had fought beside me. His brow was creased with worry, and there were small cuts on his face. My heart squeezed at the sight. "You saved him," he said, voice trembling ever so slightly, as if the weight of the moment were about to crush him. "You saved Ben." I blinked, the memories flooding back in fragments. The car, the screaming father, the crashing truck, and my instinct to shield that small boy from danger. "Is he okay?" I croaked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, he's fine," he rushed to assure me. The dreamlike quality of the hospital environment felt surreal, yet the solace his words offered grounded me. "You both were so brave. The paramedics got here just in time to pull him away safely. But you took the hit. My heart dropped. The hit. His face twisted in pain, and it took me a moment to decipher the expression. You fell into the truck's path. It barely nicked you, but you lost consciousness. The doctors said you'll be fine, just a concussion and some bruising. Suddenly, the gravity of what had happened surrounded me like a suffocating cloud. I had put myself in harm's way for a child I didn't know, and here I was, lying in a sterile hospital room. What about the father? I struggled to sit upright, this time more deliberate. He exhaled a shaky breath. He's out there in the waiting room. His name is Mark. He wants to see you as soon as possible. A proud smile crept over his face. He's incredibly grateful. He said you're his hero. Hero. I tasted the word in my mouth, trying it on for size. Was that really what I was? Or was I simply a reckless dreamer who played with fate? I leaned back against the cool pillow, suddenly exhausted. That I don't feel like a hero, I finally whispered. It felt like admitting defeat, yet at the same time, a part of me craved acknowledgement, craved his respect more than anything. That he leaned forward, intensity etched in his eyes. It doesn't matter how you feel. What you did was brave, more than emotional words can encapsulate. You put someone else's life before yours. That's incredible. I held his gaze, a myriad of feelings bubbling beneath the surface. I was rattled, raw and uncertain. But here was this man, the only constant in this whirlwind, recognizing my simple act of humanity as something greater. Why were you there with me? I asked softly, a part of me still wanting to know the man beyond the suit and his intense presence. His smile faded, revealing a crack in his composed exterior. I often find myself at the right place at the wrong time, or the wrong place at the right time, he replied, a shadow of vulnerability crossing his features. But that day, I felt the need to protect you. I didn't want to let go. Just then, the door creaked open, revealing a haggard man in a wrinkled shirt mark. The emotion was palpable in his eyes as he staggered forward, urgency mingling with relief. You're awake, he said, voice strong despite the tremor beneath it. He rushed to my side and took my free hand in his. You saved my son. I can't tell you how grateful I am. As he poured his words out, I caught a glimpse of the depth of responsibility he carried, the uncontrollable emotions spilling from him like a torrent. I don't know what I would have done if his voice choked, and the man beside me gave him a reassuring nod. I watched as the two exchanged a glance, both men bound by the chain of an unthinkable moment. My heart warmed as I felt the echo of human connection vibrate through this chaotic reality. Please don't thank me, I murmured, wiping away the unexpected tears that trailed as I spoke. I did what anyone would do. Mark released a laugh, tinged with lingering nerves. I've seen fear strip away everything. He took a moment, his breath unsteady as he calmed himself. But you chose to fight back. I don't even know how I can thank you. I just hope you can forgive me if I ever falter. I confessed earnestly, recognizing the weight of my actions surrounded by their abandonment. Forgive you? He asked incredulously, eyes sparkling with unshed tears. What you did was remarkable. You didn't falter. You stood and fought when it mattered. And in that moment, amidst the soft chaos of the hospital, something shifted within me. That spark of hope reignited. Maybe I could be strong. Maybe I could be a hero, even if only for a fleeting moment. Mark leaned closer, a dawning realization etching his features. You saved my son, and in some way, you saved me as well. You've shown me the power of connection once again. But just before I could respond, the monitors around me began to beep erratically. The doctor rushed in, snapping my focus back to the present moment. The urgency of the atmosphere thickened, overshadowing the respite I'd just experienced. Everything okay? I asked, feeling an instinctive twinge of anxiety clawing at my chest. The doctor's expression hardened. We need to run some tests now. I'm afraid we may have more crucial issues at play here. My heart dropped, the uncertainty spiraling back as I exchanged a glance with the man beside me. Would I be okay? And if not, what lay ahead? The room dimmed around me, engendering fear once more, but I swallowed hard, knowing deep down that my journey was far from over. As the doctor rapidly issued commands, my mind raced with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. I felt the familiar weight pressing onto my chest, a haunting echo of the fear I'd pushed aside moments before. Mark's grip on my hand tightened involuntarily, as if he could shield me from whatever evils lurked in the shadows. Is this about the concussion? I managed to stutter, my voice barely piercing the whirlwind of medical jargon swirling around me. But the doctor's face tightened in a way that sent icy fingers curling around my heart. "No, we're concerned about something else," he said, his words bringing the room to a standstill. "We need to see if there's any internal bleeding." I caught Mark's eye. A flicker of terror reflected there, and it made my pulse quicken. I had acted out of instinct, but was I really strong enough to face whatever lay ahead? I felt like a ship caught in a storm thrashed by grim waves without a clear path. "Hey, stay with me," the man beside me said quietly, but I could see the worry etched around his eyes, unveiling the cracks in his composed demeanor. I startled at the thought that I was the one undergoing medical evaluations, yet it felt like he was the one slowly crumbling under the weight of it all. The nurse entered, clicking her pen in a fast rhythm, marking my chart with swift precision while the doctor ushered her to administer in 4. "We'll have you prepped for an ultrasound soon. Just breathe," he instructed, glancing quickly at Mark before focusing on me again. Nausea knotted my stomach at the thought of invasive tests, of entering a realm filled with uncertain diagnoses. But despite the fear that ebbed and flowed, a flicker of gratitude for this man beside me surged through me. He had been my anchor through chaos, and I could breathe a bit better knowing he cared. Mark's thumb rubbed soothing circles on the back of my hand, and the gentleness of his touch sent conflicting emotions slamming into one another. "You'll be okay," he said, voice thick with reassurance but still laced with worry. But would I? The thought hung like a gnarled branch, overshadowing all the hope I'd recently found. I wanted to tell him that it wasn't just a fear of the unknown. It was the dread of him losing yet another connection, another precious person in his life. "Do you have a family?" It slipped past my lips before I could stop it. The point of curiosity almost felt like a tether I needed to anchor myself. He hesitated, and for a brief moment, I thought he would deflect. "Not really," he finally said, his eyes clouding with a sadness I hadn't expected. "Just Ben and me. It's been a rough few years, just trying to make it work." Before I could dwell on it, the doctor returned, his expression businesslike as he motioned for the nurses to prepare the ultrasound machine. "We need to hurry," he said, his tone sharp yet determined. "This isn't a drill." That alarmed me. I swallowed hard, determination battling with an undercurrent of vulnerability. "You know, if something happens," Mark met my gaze once more, his eyes a fusion of fear and something else, seeing unspoken connection. "You're going to be fine. You saved my son. You're a warrior," he said, each word carefully articulated, igniting a fire deep inside me. A nurse gently squeezed my shoulder, pulling me from my turbulent thoughts as she set up the machine next to my bed. "He'll be with you the whole time," she said in a soothing voice, a nod to the bond forged within moments of uncertainty. As the cool gel was applied to my stomach and the machine whirred to life, a strange sense of camaraderie began to bubble beneath the surface. We were connected, molded by the conference of fate and purpose. I was no longer just a girl in a hospital bed. I was a part of something larger, an intersection between the pain of moments past and the faint glimmers of hope. But then the screen flickered with images that made my breath catch. Something wasn't right. I could see it in the doctor's furrowed brow and the way the nurses exchanged hurried looks. Panic chased my heartbeat into a frenzied rhythm, a coiling. Fear tightening its grip around my throat. "Did you see that?" I gasped, catching glimpses of blurs that shouldn't have existed. The doctor's fingers danced along the machine, adjusting settings frantically, only adding to the anxiety building inside me. "Just a moment," he murmured, while my heart threatened to break free from its confines. The beeping intensified, and I glanced sideways at Mark. His expression mirrored mine, awash with fear and confusion, a silent question lingering between us. What was this mystery my body was hiding? Suddenly, without preamble, the doctor met my gaze, eyes radiating a gravity that twisted my stomach in knots. "We're going to need to rush you to MRI. We have reason to believe there are abnormalities, and we need to address them immediately." Abnormalities. The word echoed through me, and my world dropped away in slow motion. Everything I had fought to quell rushed back in the form of chilling reality, fear, dread, uncertainty. And as that wave crashed against me, I knew I was standing at the brink of something I was still not ready for. Mark squeezed my hand tenaciously, grounding me amid the chaos. But as the nurses rolled my bed away, His face began to blur behind tears, an image fading in the fray of tumult. Connection rooted in courage now stretched dangerously thin, perched on the edge of a revelation I feared might change everything. The hallway became a blur painted in sterile white and muted gray as the nurses wheeled me toward the MRI room. I felt disoriented, like being swept along in a current with no clear end in sight. I hardly registered the quiet beeping of machines or the soft patter of sneakers on linoleum. My mind was consumed by the distress that gnawed at my insides. "Just hold on," a nurse said, her voice warm but firm, and her hand resting on my shoulder was like a grounding weight against my rising panic. "You're doing great. Almost there." She took careful note of my vital signs, her brow slightly furrowed, but she kept her tone steady, anchoring me in this moment of chaos. It felt surreal. One moment I was in that hospital room, comforted by Mark's presence, and in the next, uncertainty had shifted the ground beneath me. My heart raced as I braced for whatever revelation awaited me in that cold, claustrophobic machine. My gaze flitted to the ceiling tiles above, a repetitive pattern that seemed to mock my racing thoughts. Beneath the surface, I longed for clarity, for assurance that everything would remain the same afterward, that nothing essential would break between Mark and me. But shadows of doubt crowded my mind. With every passing second, I feared the worst. The nurses helped me onto the MRI bed, fitting me with headphones to muffle the impending roar of the machine. As the technologist arranged the blankets around me, a small flicker of kindness bloomed in the midst of my despair. "You've shown a lot of bravery today," she said gently, her eyes meeting mine with understanding. "Just keep taking deep breaths. You're not alone." Her warmth was like a balm. I inhaled deeply, grateful for these unexpected moments of compassion, one small brightness amid the uncertainty engulfing me. "Mark," I called out, catching a glimpse of him standing in the doorway, his expression a mixture of concern and helplessness. Everything seemed charged with unspoken words, those that flitted between us like fireflies, illuminating the darkness around our intertwined fates. "He'll be okay," I attempted, but my voice wavered, betraying the anxiety that lay deeper. "Yeah," he said, but something in his tone told me he was trying to convince us both. He wanted to believe me, wanted to will my recovery into existence. And while his face was strong, the flicker of fear still lingered in the corners of his eyes, the weight of uncertainty pressing on his heart as heavily as it lay on mine. The machine roared to life, vibrating beneath me as it enveloped me in cold metal and artificial light. I shut my eyes tightly, the echoing sounds drowning out all but fragments of thought, concerns for Mark, for his son, for the potential future that could be stolen away before it had fully blossomed. Time became distorted in the clutches of that iron cocoon, with breath slipping between moments as I found myself spiraling deeper into the dark. But amid that impending gloom, a sliver of courage ignited within. I held on to the thought that I had, against all odds, saved a life, nurtured a bond that defied tragedy, and maybe, just maybe, I could face my own fight with the same tenacity. As the machine hummed and clicked, I thought of Mark, how our lives had intertwined in ways I could have never anticipated, two souls chiseled by loss and connected by survival. I thought of Ben, a kid on the edge of innocence, deserving of a future unblemished by heartache. In that moment of sterile isolation, hope began to eclipse the encroaching fear, flickering against the current of darkness. The cacophony of the MRI faded, and soon it was just a dull roar. With my heart marching to an unknown beat, a sudden image floated into my mind, an unshakable resolve to fight whatever lay before me, to clear the fog between Mark and me, to understand what all this meant. I was more than the circumstances surrounding me. I was a vessel of resilience, pushing through hardships. But then in abrupt silence, the machine ceased its grumbling, and the lights flickered for an instant before returning. A cool breath of air snuck into the room, sending a shiver along my spine. Alarm bells rang in my head, instinctively raising my awareness. Why had everything stopped? A doorway opened, and a doctor entered with furrowed brows and a clipboard in hand. My heart plummeted. His serious demeanor flashed a warning. The impromptu flicker of camaraderie sharing space with Mark's warm gaze faded, replaced by something darker, an ominous shadow looming over our brief triumphs. Something has come back. We need to discuss the results, he said, pulling my reality from the brightness of fleeting hope into the sodden depths of uncertainty. I felt my breath hitch, panic clawing its way up my throat, one question looming above all the rest. What had they discovered in those still moments? And as the doctor's eyes met mine, the doubts sank deep within me, like roots anchoring themselves in fear. I thought of the love I had started to build with Mark, a fragile thing that just could not be. The answer was about to unfold, looming vastly between us, and I knew deep down I would have to brace myself for the worst. The waiting room felt oppressive, an almost tangible weight pushing down as I shifted in my chair, stealing glances at the doctor who had just delivered the jarring news about my MRI. Mark sat beside me, his hand clasping mine in a firm but shaky grip, his expression an intricate mix of worry and fostered hope. Something nagged at my mind, a quiet whisper urging me to ask what was next, but fear coiled tightly around my heart like a constrictor, muffling my voice. The doctor stood before us, clipboard in hand, framing the uncertainty in the atmosphere with careful professionalism. He mustered a smile that didn't quite touch his eyes, one I could almost recognize from countless doctor visits, the ones with unfortunate revelations lurking just behind polite expressions. "I'd like to discuss the findings in my office," he said, his tone gentle yet urgent. I could feel my pulse quickening, each thump echoing my dread as he gestured for us to follow him. My mind fought against the tide of worry, searching for something, anything, to hang on to that resembled hope. Maybe it was just a misinterpretation of the scans. After all, it was possible common, even. But as Mark's thumb brushed over my knuckles, the warmth of his touch grounded me even as the uncertainty pulled me under. He rose with me, and together we walked down the stark hall, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Each step felt ominous, sinking me deeper into an abyss of fear. I cast a sidelong glance at Mark, his brow furrowed, lips pressed tight, a silent echo of my internal chaos. Somewhere in the dark recesses of my mind, I clung to thoughts of Ben, how he deserved not only a mother, but a future unmarred by illness. The weight of my potential frailty felt like a looming cloud, threatening to descend upon the family I so longed to become a part of. We entered the doctor's office, the overwhelming scent of antiseptic mingling with the sterile environment swirling into an almost dizzying haze. I took a seat across from the doctor, and Mark settled next to me, still holding my hand like a lifeline. The doctor's gaze flickered between us as he shuffled through the papers in front of him, the sound of rustling paper amplifying the burgeoning silence. "Your MRI shows a mass that requires further investigation," he began, his voice calm, yet clinically detached. "We need to perform a biopsy to determine the nature of it." I felt the world tilt beneath me, the very foundation of my dreams crumbling into dust. My heart raced with panic as questions erupted like wildfire in my mind. What if it was cancer? What if it meant saying goodbye to everything I had hoped for, everything that had begun to blossom? Tears brimmed in my eyes as I sought solace in Mark's grip, desperation radiating between us. "Can't we just wait?" I managed to croak, my heart plummeting as the ramifications settled around me. "What happens if it's bad news?" My voice trembled as the enormity of possibility cast its shadow. The doctor met my gaze, his expression softening. "I understand how daunting this is, but I assure you we're taking every precaution. If this is malignant, we catch it early, which increases your chances for effective treatment. Many patients go on to live healthy lives." But even his words, crafted to soothe, felt insufficient against the rising tide of fear spiraling within me. I could see Mark's jaw tense further, his eyes reflecting an unspoken vow of support that felt both comforting and crushing in its gravity. This was no longer just my struggle, this was ours, tying us more closely than I could have ever anticipated. But what if that closeness led to unbearable heartache? "Can we get a second opinion?" Mark's voice broke through the chaos in my head, poised and sure. "Whatever it takes, we'll get through this together," he added, squeezing my hand tighter, igniting a flicker of fierce determination within me. I turned to him, determination rising but breaking against the fear underlying my thoughts. But his unwavering gaze, a mix of concern, tenderness, and fierce loyalty, reminded me that amidst the chaos, love had planted its roots in our lives, even if I felt myself unworthy of it. "Yes, I stammered, forcing myself to breathe deeply through the mounting dread. I want to know everything. The hope I clung to felt fragile, a gossamer thread barely holding me aloft amid an encroaching storm. The doctor nodded, remaining calm in the face of our trembling hearts. He'll arrange for the biopsy as soon as possible. Until then, you're not alone in this fight. His reassuring words lingered, nudging at the edges of my fractured spirit like a fragile light. As the doctor continued to inform us of next steps, I found myself pulling Mark closer, resting my head against him, seeking comfort in his presence. The warmth radiated from him, a safe harbor washing over my relentless fears, and I closed my eyes, willing myself to absorb the essence of what I could grasp: his faith, our burgeoning love, a future that still sprawled ahead, albeit more uncertain than I had hoped. But as the doctor spoke, a sudden chill crept into the room, the air thickening with an unseen force that sent shivers racing down my spine. The office door creaked open, and another figure entered. The world spun as I recognized Dr. Powers, the oncologist I had consulted for my previous health scare long ago. The sight drew tight lines of dread through my veins. "That I am here to support you," she said, her gaze penetrating as she registered the weight in my eyes. Shadows passed between us, igniting a tension I couldn't decipher. Did she know something I hadn't heard yet, or was this mere coincidence? And suddenly, the fragile strands of my hope untangled, revealing a horrifying reality. The feeling of certainty I had clung to began to unravel, leaving behind questions and fear in their wake. What did she have to say? Would this change everything I had begun to hold dear? As Mark's hold tightened around me, a darkness loomed larger, and I realized that the shadows had reached deeper into our lives than we had ever imagined. The looming questions hung heavy between us. A revelation awaited just beyond the door, threatening to sway the tenuous balance of our fragile existence. The silence in the room felt dense, pregnant with unspoken worries that clawed at my insides. Dr. Powers exchanged glances with the doctor, a brief flicker of communication that ignited a cascade of anxiety in my chest. I kept my gaze on Mark, who sat resolute beside me, his fierce brow now creased with concern. I could sense his urgency, but it was hard to breathe through the clenching fear that spiraled like a tempest within me. "Dr. Powers," I breathed, the words barely escaping my lips. Are you here?" She cut me off gently. "I wanted to meet with you both to discuss your situation moving forward. I understand that this is a lot to take in," she said, her voice steady yet filled with an undercurrent of empathy. "But I assure you, the most important thing is to approach this step by step." Mark's hand tightened around mine, the warmth of his grip serving as a lifeline even as my heart raced. I took a breath and tried to focus on her words, seeking some semblance of control amidst the overwhelm. "That I appreciate that," I said, my voice trembling. "But I can't help but feel like there's something more." Dr. Powers nodded somberly, her eyes holding mine with a depth of understanding that sent ripples of dread through me. "Sometimes we need to prepare ourselves for the possibilities that lie ahead, while still holding on to hope. A biopsy is just the first step. We need to find out what we're dealing with to proceed with the best course of action. But what if it is bad?" I whispered, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "What happens to my son? To Mark? To everything?" Her expression softened as she leaned closer. "You're a fighter. I've seen it before. It may be daunting, but you'll have a support system through this. You're not alone in this, either of you." Mark exhaled a shaky breath as we both tried to latch onto her words, searching for glimmers of hope amidst the tangible fear. "We can handle whatever comes," he said, his voice full of conviction. "We'll figure it out, won't we?" I felt his strength coursing through me like electric currents, a warmth amidst the cold reality looming brightly at the edges of our lives. But the question still hung in the air, shadowing us both. What if we couldn't? As discussions about the biopsy and potential plans continued, I found my thoughts adrift, swimming through a sea of what-ifs and dark doubts. I forced myself to listen, yet every now and then, my gaze drifted back to Dr. Powers, studying her with a hint of desperation. There was something inherently familiar about her that gnawed at my memory, and amidst the chaos swirling in my mind, I pushed it aside. Eventually, we concluded our meeting, the weight of decisions hanging increasingly heavy upon my chest. I rose from my seat, feeling shaky but resolute with Mark's reassuring presence anchoring me. However, as each footstep drew us closer to the door, a part of me faintly dreaded what awaited outside. Upon leaving the office, we were greeted by buzz in the waiting area, child's laughter, the gentle murmur of concerned families, the clattering of medical equipment. It felt almost surreal, our world contrasting with the simplicity of their everyday lives. I took a second to catch my breath, knowing distraction would be short-lived, but as we stepped out into the hallway, a woman approached us suddenly, her eyes wide and bright, almost frantic with some undercurrent of urgency. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice sharper than the bustle around us. Mark and I turned in unison, surprise etched across our faces. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation with Dr. Powers," she said breathlessly. "I'm so sorry to intrude, but it reminds me of my brother's experience a few years ago. He had similar symptoms, and I'd be happy to share information about the best specialists if that would help." That I blinked in stunned disbelief. How could a stranger's kindness strike such a deep chord in the unraveling fabric of my world? For a moment, her presence stood as an unexpected beacon against the darkness that had begun to consume me. Tears welled in my eyes as I fought to maintain my composure. "Thank you," I whispered, overwhelmed. Her gesture, however small, danced with the flame of hope I had desperately needed. As she began to share her brother's story, I caught Mark's eye, a mixture of gratitude and disbelief exchanging silently. The heart-wrenching fear seemed momentarily softened by the connection, a reminder that a world of kindness did exist, even when shadowed by uncertainties. But all too quickly, that warmth faded when the distant sounds of an emergency siren wailing cut through the moment, a chilling reminder of the fragility of life. My heart quickened, an involuntary shudder racing through me. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket, jolting me from my fragile reverie. Curiously, I pulled it out to find a message from my mother, one I had not expected. "I need to talk. It's important." The urgency in her words sent ice flowing through my veins. Was this about my health? Had she sensed something, or was it about something darker? What more could the universe hold in store for me? As I turned to Mark, uncertainty etched in my eyes. One truth crystallized. While unexpected kindness surged in turns along this path, the road ahead remained fraught with shadows, shrouded in the unknown. The weight of revelation still lay ahead, perhaps deeper and more painful than I dared to imagine. The hallway felt interminable as I stood frozen, my breath hitching in my throat. Mark, sensing my turmoil, squeezed my hand tighter. "What's wrong?" he asked, concern lacing his voice. I hesitated, the phone still clutched in my palm, the cryptic message glaring back at me. "I think I need to call my mom," I managed to reply, anxiety bobbing like a lifeline in the storm-tossed sea of my thoughts. "She says it's important." The simple statement bore the weight of 1,000 questions, each one laced with fear. What if it was about my health? Or worse, something entirely unexpected? Mark watched closely, an unyielding pillar of support, but I could feel the tension building between us like a taut wire. "You want me to come with you?" he offered softly, but I shook my head. "No, I have to do this alone." I glanced back at the woman who had approached us, who now stood a few paces away, a sympathetic smile on her face, as if sensing my unease. Grateful though I was for her kindness, my focus had narrowed to this impending conversation with my mother. With a heavy heart and trembling fingers, I dialed the familiar number. As the phone rang, each beep echoed the fear slicing through me. The chime of her voice on the other end sent a shiver racing down my spine. "Hello, Mom," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. "You wanted to talk." Her silence was palpable, thick with something unspoken. "I'm sorry to call you like this, sweetheart. I wanted to wait until you had results from your biopsy. Booty, think I need to tell you something now." I swallowed, bracing myself for the weight of her words. "What is it?" "I've been meaning to share a family secret," she continued, her voice wavering. "Something that could change everything for you." Hope struggled against dread within me, fighting for breath as I tightened my grip on the phone. "What do you mean? What kind of secret?" Another heavy pause. "Your father, he wasn't who you thought he was. There's so much that you don't know, and it's crucial that you hear this before you go through anything. And it's about our family's health history, things I wish I would have told you sooner." The revelation pierced through my fog of fear, confusion blossoming into something sharper. There was a truth buried within her words that trembled on the brink of revelation, but I needed her to push me forward. Mom, please just say it. I can't say it all over the phone. I need to explain in person. Her admission sounded as if it carried an unshakable weight, twisting my stomach into knots. Can you meet me? There's a cafe near the hospital. I'll be waiting. When the call ended, I stood frozen in the hallway, caught between the urgency of her plea and the despair that loomed over me like an ominous cloud. Mark's hand was still enveloping mine, grounding me in this moment as I glanced in his direction, panic beginning to bubble within me. What did she say? He asked gently. I think she knows something. I stammered, the words tumbling out in a rush. About my father. About our health. She said it's a family secret. Mark's brow furrowed with concern, and I mustered the strength to meet his gaze, hoping for an anchor amidst the relentless storm. I need to meet her. I need to know what she means. Okay, he said, his voice steady and reassuring. Let's go. As we walked toward the exit, my thoughts were flying in all directions like flocks of frightened birds. The revelation of a family secret loomed above me, a question mark I couldn't escape. Would this new information help me face my own health battle, or would it only add another layer of uncertainty? The street outside the hospital felt alien, as if the world was simultaneously spinning in circles and standing still. I could see the cafe across the street, a small, cozy place, the type of spot I used to love as a child for its oversized pastries and warmth. Now, it felt more like a venue for incalculable truths waiting to burst forth like a dam about to give way. As we approached, another surge of anxiety crashed over me. What if whatever my mother shared was terrifying? What if it changed everything? I clenched my fists, the cool metal of my ring biting into my skin, a reminder of the warmth still radiating from Mark, who stood beside me, silent but unwavering. On entering the cafe, the bell above the door jingled, its sound jolting me from my internal spiral. My mother sat at a corner table, her eyes searching the room until they fell on me. The familiar lines of her face were stark, set with a gravity that deepened the pit in my stomach. As she motioned for me to sit, I felt time slipping, a tension-filled silence brewing between us like a tempest waiting to erupt. I could sense Mark hovering near the door, a protective sentinel ready to intervene as needed. But for now, my world narrowed to my mother and the gravity of her secret. Thank you for coming, she started, her voice thick with emotion. The room felt as if it was closing in around us. Just tell me, I blurted, desperation spilling forth. I need to know. Yet as her lips parted to finally bring forth the truth, the door swung open, and my heart froze at the figure materializing within the catheter. Powers, stepping inside, an unexpected shadow intermingling with the unfurling tension. The mere sight of her made my breath hitch. It was almost as if the universe was unraveling truths I was not yet ready to encompass. And just then, as I registered her presence, my phone buzzed again, the sharp vibration almost mocking, pulling my attention back to the intricate web of revelations that lay ahead. What more secrets awaited to be uncovered, and how would they reshape everything I had cared for, feared, and loved? I couldn't breathe. The room started to constrict around me, every face at the cafe blurring under the weight of uncertainty. And now, Dr. Powers stood there, her presence altering the very dynamics of this moment I had longed to own. Mom, I said, my voice trembling, what do you need to tell me? But she glanced briefly at Dr. Powers, and in that mere flicker of hesitation, I felt my heart thud painfully against my ribcage. Why was she here? Did she know something? Dim lights flickered above us as the air thickened with expectation, a chasm opening between us, the unspoken truth pressing for release. Mom? Her voice cracked, but she pressed forward. I've been carrying this information for too long, and with everything you're facing, you deserve to know. The tremor in her voice made my stomach twist. Your father, he wasn't just a regular guy. He had a condition in our family. The world around me blurred like the edges of a painting running from rain, and I could hardly hear her words as heavy breaths caught in my throat. What kind of condition? My heart raced, every pulse echoing the anxiety swelling in my chest. Your father carried a gene that put him at terrible risk for illness. It's been passed down through generations, she said, her eyes flooding with tears. I didn't want to believe it for so long. Thought it was just madness, but it's real. A jolt of realization struck me. This was why so much had felt so tenuous. Fate had been unyielding and cruel, cracking open the idols of bravery I'd built for myself. Is this why you never told me? Because it scared you? I found my voice, laden with frustration and hurt. Because I thought I could shield you from fear, she said, still trembling. But now your health, it's paramount. This knowledge could change everything. Before I could steady myself, Dr. Powers stepped forward, her voice steady. I also have a familial connection to this condition. I lost my brother to it, but we caught it too late. Her gaze shifted to me. I could see the weight of her past in her eyes, mirroring the apprehension I felt. If you allow me, I can guide you through your next steps. Suddenly, everything stopped. I stared at my mother, at Dr. Powers, at Mark, who watched, eyes wide with concern. Each held a fragment of the truth, yet I didn't know if I was prepared to confront the depth of it. How could I possibly quantify the impact of their findings? I remembered Ben, the child I had saved, and the bond one had stumbled upon with Mark. This looming revelation about my father and my health felt invasively large, like a wall I didn't have the strength to scale. But maybe this was the moment I had been waiting for. To take the strands of fear and weave them into something new, into the hope I dared to latch on to. All right, I said slowly, breath catching in my chest once more. Let's go ahead with the tests. I want to know what's next. A silence enveloped the tablia, hitched breath, shared in collective uncertainty. And as I locked eyes with Mark, a tremor shot through me. There was reassurance in the warmth of his hand squeezing mine, a silent promise that we would stand together against whatever storm came. Mom's eyes shimmered with tears, but on her face was relief. "I'll be with you through this," she whispered, the voice I had known all my life soothing my frayed edges. Dr. Powers maintained a professional calm, bringing a spark of clarity back into focus. "In the meantime," she said, "remember that together you can face this. I'll be here every step of the way." With a resolute breath, I nodded. Somewhere deep inside, courage bubbled back up to the surface. Maybe I was a hero after all, a warrior in my own right. Maybe the truth I feared so much could shape me into someone who would not shy away from love, from connections, from the possibility of a future worth fighting for. And as we rose from our seats, two families intertwined by fate rather than blood, my resolve strengthened. Together, we could face the dark shadows looming over us. I would not be defined by fear, but by the love and bravery that filled the silence following. Unthinkable truths. As I stepped out into the cool air, vulnerability mixed with hope within me. Because in that transformative moment, facing our demons meant allowing ourselves to be seen fully and completely. I squeezed Mark's hand tightly, not knowing what the future would bring, but resolved that no matter what happened, I would face it with courage, side by side. One final surge surged through me, a whisper of assurance not just for myself, but for all of us moving forward. Whatever it is, we'll find a way through it. And deep down, I felt a tinge of optimism bloom wildly against the darkness. The sun shone brightly overhead, illuminating a reality that was tender, fragile, but unlike anything I had ever known. Our lives rebuilding from the ashes, one step at a time. My heart swelled at the thought of it, at the love I'd fight for, at the unexpected connections we formed. And the last thought that echoed through me as I held my loved ones close was one that burned brightly in my chest. In every loss, we find our deepest truths, and with those truths, we rise a bond unbreakable, a love indomitable.
I unfolded the paper, slipping it past my trembling fingers. The address blinked back at me like a beacon in a storm. "There's a safe house we can reach," I whispered, but the waitress interrupted, her voice cutting through my racing thoughts. "That's where they'll look for you. The address is compromised. You need to go somewhere more secure," she urged, casting a wary glance around. "Where?" I asked, panic mounting in my chest. She leaned in closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Trust me, I know a place. We can go through the old subway entrance behind here. It'll take you beneath the city and far from their eyes." As she spoke, a sound grew closer, a low hum, the unmistakable sound of a car engine drawing nearer. Panic clawed at my throat. "We don't have much time. Let's go." Mia grabbed my hand tightly, pulling me toward the gap in the alley's far end. The waitress glanced one more time at the approaching headlights, and together, we raced toward the darkness. Fear propelling us forward, the old subway entrance loomed before us, a gaping maw of uncertainty that would swallow us whole. We stepped inside, leaving behind the chaos of the cafe and the lurking threats of the outside world as my eyes adjusted to the dim light of the abandoned subway tunnel. I felt a strange sense of perspective settling within me. This path was as unforgiving as the one we had just fled. Secrets lay in wait like shadows. Waiting to pounce, I turned to Mia, squeezing her hand in reassurance. No matter what happens, we stick together. We will find a way to untangle this mess. Agreed. No more secrets, she added, a glint of resoluteness shining through her worry. We pressed forward, our footsteps echoing against the walls, each step inching us closer to the truth and the answers we had unwittingly sought. But as we wound deeper into the darkness, a feeling of connection formed between us, threaded with the memories of our friendship, a reminder that in this world fractured by secrets, the strength of our bond would be the light that guided us home. With that hope fueling our journey into the unknown, I whispered to myself, no more running. We face this together. And as those words slipped through my lips, I couldn't shake the feeling that just beyond the shadows, beneath the weight of the world pressing down upon us, the truth awaited, ready to reshape our lives in ways we couldn't yet fathom. As the darkness closed in, I took a deep breath and held MIA's gaze, determined that whatever lay ahead, we would confront it with the courage we had discovered in each other. In that moment, it became clear. We were not just surviving, we were fighting for our story. And perhaps, in the mysterious tapestry of fate, we would uncover the very things that could change everything we thought we knew about ourselves and the world. The darkness didn't feel so suffocating anymore. The shadows swirled, and amidst the chaos, I found the resolve to push onward into the life waiting just beyond the horizon. A life ruled by choices, bonds, and untold possibilities.